Well, guys, more Florida news. More anti-trans Florida legislation news. This bill that we're about to go over has been nicknamed by many trans people online as the Trans Extermination Bill. This is probably the most extreme bill that we've gotten, and I actually have an extra article I'm going to read after this one of a separate bill that was passed literally right afterwards on top of it. And I think it's important to consider these things as one overall sort of, bundled together thing. Anyway, DeSantis signs bill targeting drag shows, transgender kids, and the use of bathrooms and pronouns. Tallahassee, Florida. Let's go. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed bills Wednesday that ban gender-affirming care for minors, target drag shows, restrict discussion of personal pronouns in schools, and force people to use certain bathrooms. DeSantis has made anti-LGBTQ+ legislation a large part of his agenda as he prepares to seek the Republican presidential nomination. He signed the bills in front of a cheering crowd at the Evangelical Cambridge Christian School in Tampa. A reminder, everybody, I want to remind you all, this idea that, like, the anti-trans legislation or the anti-trans rhetoric the Republicans push is broadly popular is just not represented in the polls. The Republicans, it is, like, unanimously agreed upon. The Republicans wasted millions trying to get people to vote for them on the basis of transphobia. The problem is, when it comes to, like, hating gay and trans people, even a lot of homophobes and transphobes don't consider that a single issue. There are unironically a fair amount of, like, casually transphobic Democrats that might watch, like, transphobic videos or watch, like, exclusively those anti-trans figures, but they vote Democrat. Because, like, being anti-trans or the Democrats being pro-trans, they're just not enough of a single issue voter on that issue for that to sway their vote, and the polls represent this very blatantly. So, it's very obvious why he did this at an evangelical Christian school. It's because anywhere else, and honestly, there wasn't going to be that much enthusiasm for anti-trans bills. The ceremony had a campaign-like feel, with DeSantis tossing Sharpies to a crowd, as opposed to when he privately signed measures on abortion and gun rights. He literally signed this bill to a jeering audience and then, like, threw Sharpies out to the crowd to, like, catch as, like, I guess is like, oh, this is the one of the Sharpies that DeSantis used to sign the anti-LGBT bill. Whoa, look, my souvenir. It's kind of sad that we even have some of... Sorry. It's kind of sad that we even have some of these discussions, DeSantis told the crowd, standing behind a lectern with a sign reading, "Let kids be kids." Hilarious. DeSantis presented a narrative that expert panels in the nation's major medical associations have said is false, such as the idea that children are routinely being mutilated. While he said he is protecting kids' rights, his opponents say he is denying the rights of parents with transgender kids. Quote-unquote, they have cloaked themselves in being the party of less government and parental rights, and what we're seeing now is the total opposite, said Democratic State Senator Chevron Jones, who is gay. Every parent has the right to raise their child in the way that they want to, as long as your child is not gay, trans, bisexual. That freedom for your parents, that's freedom from... I'm sorry, I can't speak right now. I need to take a sip of water. The downside of doing these things live. Every other parent has the right to raise their child the way that they want to, as long as your child is not gay, trans, or bisexual. That's freedom for some parents, but not for all parents. The gender care law also bans the use of state money for gender-affirming care and places new restrictions on adults seeking treatment. 3 Florida parents have asked a federal court to issue a temporary restraining order immediately blocking the new law's enforcement. Attorneys for the families, who have a pending challenge to the state boards of medicine and osteopathic medicine, will be in court on Friday to argue that their children should be able to receive medical care as the case continues. Basically, the idea is that if you're like a trans parent who is having a custody disagreement and one parent is anti-trans and one parent is pro-trans, the anti-trans parents are trying to use new passed legislation in Florida that is specifically designed to make it so anti-trans parents in that, like, situation have the power of, more power over what happens to the kid, because they're trying to basically squeeze the noose around the population of trans people as to who can and can't get treatment. And I've got another article I'm going to read in a minute that makes this even scarier. Planned Parenthood immediately started canceling gender-affirming care appointments after the bill was signed as the organization assesses the law's implications. Transgender medical treatment for children and teenagers is increasingly under attack in many states, and it has lately been subject to restrictions or outright bans. But it has been available in the United States for more than a decade, and it is endorsed by major medical associations as appropriate care for people diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Their guidelines generally prevent surgery for minors, though. Treatment typically begins with an evaluation for the distress caused when gender identity doesn't match a person's assigned sex. With parental consent, persistent gender dysphoria can be treated with hormones, but typically not until the age of 16. The guidelines also say surgery should be reversed for people 18 and older. But DeSantis spoke to applause at the bill signing. We never did this through all of human history like this. What, 2 weeks ago? Now this is something? Now they're having third genders or third graders declare pronouns? We're not doing the pronoun Olympics in Florida, DeSantis said. So his quote about trans people is, we never did this through all of human history until, like, what, 2 weeks ago? At the end of the day, one of the core lies the right is pushing with their rhetoric on trans people lately is the idea that transgenderism is a newfangled fad that is basically sucking in young people like a black hole, and it's just a social contagion. You can't redo the original surgery later. Yeah, obviously, DeSantis is trying to, like, advocate here for detransitioning trans people after the age of 18. Yeah. Jones said the governor's choice of venue displayed the unpopularity of his campaign platform. If he's so confident in his policies, don't go hiding behind signing the bills at a Christian school or place where you're more prone to get praise for your bigotry, Jones said. Do it out in the community. Republican Representative Randy Fine, who sponsored the ban on gender-affirming care for minors, invoked his religion to defend the state's actions. God does not make mistakes with our children, Fine said. Jones called Fine's take on the Bible disingenuous. For anyone to use scripture in the same breath as you are being discriminatory and hateful towards a community of people, it don't work like that, Jones said. You can't take a book that was built on love and turn it around and fit your narrative. I like the weaponization by progressives of the Bible, but, you know, that's bullshit. But also, you know, it's fine. I know what he's doing there, and I respect it. So, pretty fucked up, pretty horrific, but it gets scarier. It actually gets scarier, because that may be the end of that article, but there's more. There's more implications to this bill that's been passed. In signing this horrifying bill Wednesday, this will allow the state to take transgender minors away from their families if they're receiving gender-affirming care. This is already known. The new law will allow the state to take custody of a child if they have been subjected to or are threatened with being subjected to, quote-unquote, gender-affirming care, which includes puberty blockers and hormone replacement therapy. All of this we already knew, but there is an additional fact here that is important. Let me see if I can find it right here. Here it is. Minors who have already begun transitioning will be allowed to continue to do so, but they are no longer allowed to receive care via telehealth, including for prescriptions. Their doctors have to tell them about the risks of gender-affirming care, and patients will have to sign an information consent form with the ACLU, which the ACLU has pointed out often contains misinformation. Doctors who violate any of these new rules could be charged with a felony. It goes deeper than this. Ron DeSantis has not only passed these bills, but put together a medical board, as he calls it, of a bunch of quack doctors that have put together a list of requirements of rules that the doctors have to follow for kids that are already getting gender-affirming care, because they've already been grandfathered in. And the kind of, like, warnings they have to give them are literally filled with lies. Things like, if you take hormone blockers, you'll be permanently castrated chemically. Things like that. Like, medical institutions, like, the world over have already confirmed the things that Ron DeSantis is requiring these doctors to say are false, and yet he is still pushing it. And here's the scariest part. You may be thinking, this is just Florida, you know? It's just a Florida thing, right? Like, oh, I'm not Floridian. I don't have anything to worry about. Do you by chance have a child? Maybe. That, you know, you're in a divorce situation. Like, you've got hold on, my nose is so itchy. Like, maybe you've got a child who is trans, and you've got a ex-partner who is anti-trans. And you're having some kind of custody battle, or have had a custody battle, and your anti-trans partner lives in Florida. The state of Florida, I shit you not, now has the power in some cases to take custody of the kid who's in another state than Florida if one of the guardians of said kid lives in Florida and disagrees with that kid getting gender-affirming care, because they can report it to the state as child abuse. So don't you think that this can't extend outside of Florida? Because it can. It can. It can extend out of Florida. There are legal loopholes that these people can write up to find ways to drag trans kids who have left Florida right back. It takes time once you've moved states to get, like, official legal residence in that state, you know. Like, technically, I don't have my official legal residence here yet, because I'm renting here, like a sort of vacation rental. I have to, like, rent a proper, like, house or apartment or something, get bills, and then I can get, like, an ID for this state, you know? I'm still technically a California resident. It's that kind of stuff. There are loopholes that don't even think for a second there aren't more loopholes like this that Ron DeSantis and the Republicans in Florida and all these other red states will take advantage of. You are not safe even if you're in a blue state, because they will try to come for you even if you think you're safe from them. Now, I think it's safe to say that if you're in Florida and you're trans and you can't get out, then just saying move doesn't do enough for you. It doesn't. Saying just move doesn't do enough for you. Because a lot of you are going to be cut off from access to care. You're going to be criminalized. In some cases, for example, part of this bill also includes government facilities can now, if you see, for example, a trans person, or someone you suspect is a trans person, I guess, using, like, let's say you think you see a trans woman in the woman's bathroom in a state facility in Florida. So a school, a courthouse, anything like that. You can call the cops on them and say that you're uncomfortable with them being there. Cops will come. Right now, we don't know how the process would go as to how it would be determined, but if it turns out that person's trans, in the letter of the law, they can be criminally charged. It's in state-run facilities, schools, courthouses, etc. in the state of Florida. They are cracking down. Their end goal is and has always been total extermination. It hasn't started here, and it will not stop here. Someone in YouTube chat said, just like how black slaves could be dragged back to the South even after seeking emancipation. Exactly. These people will find ways and legal loopholes to drag you right back into the hell that they're creating. It's terrifying. Here's what I recommend if you're stuck in Florida and you can't move. If you're trans and you're worried, there's nothing I can do about, like, getting hate crimed other than saying buy a gun. What I can say in regards to not having access to gender-affirming care, though, is if you genuinely believe that it's either having gender-affirming care or you're dying, like you are going to kill yourself or self-harm to the extent that your life is badly threatened if you don't get gender-affirming care, then I, by all means, endorse DIY HRT. If you can't get, like official, like a state approved gender-affirming care, and you truly believe it's either your life or the HRT or the gender affirming care, seek DIY HRT. It's not hard to find. Like, I had a friend who needed that, like, resource, and I literally just, like, Googled DIY HRT and found a site, and then I sent it to some of my trans friends, and we're like, hey, is this site, like, trustworthy? Is this legit? And they're like, oh, yeah, I've heard of that place. It's legit. And I was like, all right, here you go. This place seems legit. And, yeah, it's not like bathtub shit. It's, like, made in actual labs and like, medical facilities. It's just shipped out cheaper. It's kind of like how people go to Mexico to buy their insulin for $13 a vial instead of like 100 something or 300 something. DIY HRT has saved the lives of far too many trans people for me to believe that it's a bad thing. Okay, that's my position on it. And if you truly believe it will save your life and you're sure that without it you're going to die, then I recommend seeking it out. And frankly, if you're looking for a place to seek it out, I would recommend checking out Demon Mama's channel. You can also go to trans-friendly discords like my Discord, Demon Mama's Discord, probably Vosh's Discord, etc. And you can probably find trans people that will no doubt be able to recommend a sound source. I don't know like any of the best sources myself, but I'm sure you can find someone who will. Anyway, that's pretty much my take on things. If you're worried about getting hate crimed, buy a gun. And if you're worried about your life being literally at risk because you can't get access to treatment, then get access to treatment by any means necessary.